Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Bruce Black. I am the program manager, coordinator, operator of the Mobile City Hall, beautiful vehicle flashing and blinking outside. For those of you who have never had the opportunity to be around the vehicle, it is a 4G mobile hotspot. It's got technology, laptops, iPads, all kind of stuff inside of it. We're going to be rolling out a new one the beginning of the year. It's going to have a big smart TV mounted in the side. So that when we come out to your community events and activities, we'll be able to have some interactive activities available for folks to get involved with. I also run a program called Neighborhood Pride. Okay, again, for those of you who have never heard of the Neighborhood Pride program, it is the 19 years with the City of Columbus. It is the best, greatest community outreach initiative in the state of Ohio, if I must say. We partner with the county, the state, the city, for-profits and non-for-profits to all come together and work specifically with communities. Every neighborhood is different. Every community has a different personality. The program adapts and changes accordingly to the needs of that area. It's about a 6-week opportunity, starting out with a bus tour, and then we send in all of the city crews. Everybody's heard me do it. Here we go. We sweep streets, trim trees, paint fire hydrants, pick up trash litter, fill potholes, clean out catch basins, repair street lights, and systematically inspect the homes in each neighborhood. If you'd like to hear that later on, catch me to the side and I will do it much slower. The idea is to bring the neighborhood to a level playing field by bringing the resources of the city in. Now, how do we get the community to come out? We got food. Breakfast and lunch every day, served, open to the community to come together. We bring county, city workers to join us all at the same time just to kind of interact. You know, we call it fellowshipping. We'll use that word. Because people coming together develop relationships. Relationships are the sustainable part of community. Am I right or wrong? How many folks of you have ever been a part of a Pride opportunity, a Pride community? Look around for those of you who haven't. We are popular. Bicycle safety education for your kindergarten through 5th graders. And on December the 19th at the King Arts Complex this year, we'll be doing a talent show with students from Sherwood, Heritage, South, Siebert, and Wedgwood. Those students will be auditioning here soon to be a part of our show. They'll get a chance to be mentored by professional performers where they'll prepare themselves to be on stage. Stay tuned and keep watching our Department of Neighborhood Facebook page for more information. Okay? Now, I've done all the fun part. Can I get that video? Please feel free to sing along.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor.
This one table right here, they said they all know the words to this song. Come on, y'all, get with it.
It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine?
I should do a karaoke style.
I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, might as well say,
Would you be mine? Would you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Haha. Won't you be? Won't you be? Please won't you be my neighbor? If you notice, the theme of this event that we're doing, this best practice conference this year, kind of feeds off what Mr. Rogers' message was about bringing together community and people. I'm old. I was born in 55. I've lived through a lot of different things. Hey, all the 55 and olders, hands up. Hey. We've seen the changes of our times. We've watched our world go from black and white TVs to these world-famous devices that we all carry, iPhones. Neighborhoods have changed all over our city. Some of the things that we need to be focused on is trying to bring back safe, clean communities where people are safe to grow up and be able to feel that they're safe in the environments that they live in. Mr. Rogers introduced diversity, where it was safe to be who you were in the neighborhood that you lived in. We were all accepted back then. Nobody looked at anybody in a different light. Everybody listened to what each other was saying. We felt it was necessary that if you said something, you deserved to be heard. Today at this conference, we're going to be sharing some of those tools. We're going to be asking that everybody spend the opportunity and get a chance to listen to what each others have to say. I'm going to do something. I'm going to go off script real quick. If everybody could just stand up real quick for a hot second, just a second. Now, turn around. You're going to be facing tables with people that you're not sitting with. Introduce yourselves.
I'll come introduce myself.
Okay. We didn't say have a conference. I said sit down and introduce yourselves. Now y'all can sit back down. Hello, Tiffany White. Nice to meet you too, Tiffany White. Right about now, Gil Gray's looking at me going, Bruce, you're taking me off my time schedule. All right, come on, get back down, get back down. Hopefully by the end of today and having a chance to meet the people who are sitting close near to you, you'll get a chance to meet people from different neighborhoods, different parts of the city of Columbus. This is an opportunity for all of us to come together and get to know each other. I've been doing this program for Pride and been in 101 communities citywide over the 19 years that this program's been in existence. Every community in our city has different challenges, different goals, and different ambitions. Today is your opportunity to share some of those answers and questions with each other. What's working in your neighborhood that's not working in another? How do you change the way of getting community involved? Most of all, how do we get our young people back involved? I want to introduce to you Ms. Sharon Ware. Now, Sharon and I have known each other for a number of years. Tell people, if you want to come to the best side of the city of Columbus, you need to move to the east side. Okay? The east side obviously has a strong group of community representatives and people available to be able to help you out in working with stuff. You want to work up here? Ladies and gentlemen, Sharon Ware with United Way.
Thank you. I should be applauding you. Again, 9th year of community people coming together to share their best stories, their practices, and to come to learn how they can engage even more of their community. How many people are here today first time at the conference? Whoa, that's fabulous. So at that point, we have about 2,700 people who have attended the conferences over 9 years. 2,700 people who have been out there in the community, engaging with their neighbors, offering up new ways to do things, sharing the best practices of neighbors across town. How many times as neighbors we felt that we were the only ones that had a particular problem. And now you are engaged in programs like this that says we all have challenges and we address them different ways. So on behalf of the United Way of Central Ohio, I am privileged out of the Neighborhood Partnership Center to be engaged with you when you have those challenges and are looking for ways that you can come up with new ideas. We have the Neighborhood Leadership Academy. How many people do we have here today from the Academy? Graduates as well as new people. So it's pretty good. Again, we have almost 175 people who have graduated from this program from the Downtown Neighborhood Leadership Academy, and now we have 3 satellite or place-based communities in Southside, Linden, and the Near East. Again, this is a fabulous town. Columbus steps up to wanting to do better. And we have that collaboration of city, agencies like United Way, and other programs that come together to uplift and support you. I want to say to everyone, please enjoy your day. Exchange addresses and emails and contact information. Visit each other. Get to know each other in the neighborhood. I was late coming to Mr. Rogers and understanding what he was doing. I was an adult, and I thought, oh my goodness. He is actually not talking down to children, talking about principles that we all should live by. And what a way to start it. Start it at the ground level with children. So as we go through the day, through Mr. Rogers' neighborhood or through the Columbus neighborhoods, remember, we all want to be better, and we all want to make sure that we are engaged in activities that allow that to happen. Welcome.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to be real nice with this because normally when I introduce this person, I get a little carried away. Okay, so I'm gonna hold it back, just watch. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker coming to the stage has pulled together one of the most dynamic group of city employees there is working for the city right now. I call them the Gold Star team. When these employees get together and show up at any event, any place in the city of Cumberland, whether it's 1 or 22 of us, we bring life to the party. The reason is because we connect with you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and a privilege to introduce my director, the director of the Department of Neighborhoods, Ms. Carla Williams-Scott.
Thanks, Bruce, and good morning, everybody. As I look around here in the audience, I was thinking to myself, you guys could have been anywhere on a Saturday morning, and you chose to be here. So that shows your commitment to our community and to the city of Columbus. And on behalf of our mayor and my boss, Mayor Andrew Ginther, I would like to welcome you and thank you for being here. I think Bruce and Sharon kind of summed it up, the theme for this year's conference, Won't You Be My Neighbor? How many of you live in a community where you don't know the people next door to you? Yeah. There are several of us. I know I was even like that for a while. And, my husband always says I'm always out, meet a friend, make a friend. And so, I saw a moving truck moving in, and I went over and introduced myself. And I want us to be able to get back to that in our communities so that we know who's living next door to us. The other thing I want to share with you is, for those of you that have participated in the conference in the past, you've been used to getting a binder full of resources and all kinds of information. Well, this year we tried to do a little something different. So at the bottom of your bag is a thumb drive, and all that information that you've gotten before in a binder is on a thumb drive. So that's our attempt to try and save the planet as well, and to make things easier for you. If for some reason you don't have access to a computer and you want to get some of those materials in hard form, just see one of our team members in the Department of Neighborhood shirts. Where's my team? Yeah, there's a bunch of us floating around, and we can make that happen for you. Again, on behalf of our mayor, thank you for being here. I really want to give a special thanks to Gail Gray from our team who helped to coordinate. Where's Gail? Yep. Gail Gray and the entire committee that has been working on this conference. I'm looking forward to an exciting day, an information-filled day. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Bruce to introduce you to our keynote speaker.
Thank you, Director. Okay, they were gracious enough to give me all this information. I'm going to go over with you over the course of the day, but it'll be in Bruce version. When I saw the keynote speaker's name show up, I kind of said, okay, I need to figure out how much can I learn about her as fast as I can. So yesterday, I spent the whole afternoon when I got home looking at all the videos, reviewing all of her information, and doing a lot of studying on who our keynote is, because I said this has to be somebody really special. Melissa Rashan. The easiest way I can explain her or describe her to you by Bruce's way is a phenomenal, challenging life, rising to the top of the hill, reaching back and pulling others forward. Okay? when I looked it over and listened to her speeches that she did at TEDx, it was inspiring. It was full of information. But it also let me realize that some of the things I thought I was going through that were my challenges were nothing compared to hers. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Mel Row.
Good morning. Good morning. Gosh, I'm so thankful to be here. I just really want to thank United Way, everyone that's in attendance. It's just really an exciting time. I have to say that I am a bit nervous because I feel like I'm an ordinary woman and God has allowed me to do a couple of extraordinary things. So when people talk me up, I'm like, I gotta live up to that, yikes. But I think what's really amazing is that we all have something in common, and that is that we all have the same amount of seconds in a day, 86,400. And what we do with them is really our decision and our choice. So I read a quote recently. It's an African proverb, and I think we're going to pull up my PowerPoint soon, but we'll just hold off for a moment. But it's an African proverb, and Ernest, I'm going to point you out. Hi. Because this is one of his favorite quotes. But it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, travel together. And that really resonated in my spirit because I'm just like, goodness gracious, there's been just many, many years of my life where I have certainly gone far, right? And I've gone fast. But I've gone fast because for a moment in my life, I was actually confusing movement for progress. But when I learned to redefine what community meant and means is when I started to go farther. So before I jump too far ahead, I'm gonna actually take you back and share just a few intimate details about my life and the work that I'm doing now. I'm not a perfect woman at all, but God is perfect, and I'm walking in my purpose, and that's really all that I can say about that. Yeah. So what this will require you to do in order to really connect with my story is we're just gonna use a little imagery in our mind. So what I'm gonna ask you to do for a moment is just close your eyes. Nothing's gonna pop out at you, I promise. But what I'm gonna do is I'm going to have you bring up an image of a young girl in your mind, okay? And I'm gonna give you the setting, and I'm gonna give you the time period, and let's really, really see this girl. All right, so I'm gonna have you close your eyes for a moment. We're gonna bring up this woman. We're gonna bring up this young girl, really so that we can connect today. All right, so I need you to see a girl. She's about the age of 13, okay? And this young girl lives in the foster care system. The time period is 1980. This girl, some of you may know her. She's lived in foster care. She's been through so many different levels of trauma, sexual abuse, physical abuse, certainly emotional abuse. She lived in foster care her entire life. Food is her best friend. She's alone. She's hurting. She's lost. Certainly no sense of direction. She's in Chicago, Illinois by herself. And she just feels like every day that she doesn't want to be here. So one day she's walking home from school, and she's thinking about all of the things that are wrong in her life. She's not been able to turn any of her wounds to wisdom. She's hurting, she's walking home, she's eating this bag of chips, and she sees a man that she'd recognized from her neighborhood, and he always just gave her this really eerie feeling. But when he spoke to her this day, she didn't turn away from him. She didn't trust her gut. So when he spoke to her and said, "Hello, Sarah," she looked at him and said hello back. He asked her if she'd like to come inside his home. Something told her not to go, but she didn't listen to that something. So she went with him into his home, and on that day, she felt like her life was going to end when he brutally raped her, is the day that my life began. You can now open your eyes. I am the baby from that rape. Now, I am not a product of rape. I'm a product of grace. But that's how my life began. So here I am, sad little baby, sad eyes. I feel like your eyes always kind of tell a story about where you are. I came at 7 months gestation, so here I am, a preemie. And every time my mother would hold me, I was the constant reminder of the trauma that she went through. So let me get a show of hands in reference to if you are surprised when I tell you that my mother started to become abusive toward me, right? Because sometimes, not always, but sometimes we repeat what is not repaired. So her abuse started to turn toward me, and I was subsequently removed from her and placed with family members in hopes that I would have a better life. So I'm with my grandmother, and again, when we repeat what's not repaired, my grandmother started to become abusive toward me in the same ways that she was abusive toward my mother. So I was removed from my grandmother's care and placed into the foster care system. Now raise your hand if you don't know what foster care is. You don't know what foster care is. That's great. It's a learning opportunity. Foster care is when a child is placed from their parent, removed from their parents and placed into sometimes a temporary or permanent placement until their parents can get themselves together, yeah? All right. So currently we have 420,000 foster youth in the United States, but we'll go into that in just a little bit. So I was placed into the foster care system in hopes that my grandmother would get it together and my mother would get it together, but that didn't happen. So one foster home turned to 2. Okay, not bad. 2 turned to 5. 5 turned to 10. 10 to 15, and by the time I was 15 years old, I had lived in 23 different foster homes. Now, some of you may be trying to figure out, like, gosh, what would that be like? Well, I'm not going to put anyone on blast, but I don't know how many of us have dated 23 people, right? But try imagining getting used to 23 different personalities, ways of being, cultures, all these things. It was very traumatic. Now put that child who's been through trauma in a home and have them get used to these 23 different hopes and disappointments, 23 different sort of kind of moms and dads, right? Sort of kind of. And 23 messages of, hey, you're not valuable enough to keep. Now, some of us may be asking, well, how on earth, Mel, could you have ended up in 23 foster homes? Well, the truth of the matter is that when you don't have blonde hair and blue eyes and you've got a lot of trauma, you're really not attractive in reference to adopting. That's the truth. So I'm bounced around from home to home, and I'm carrying my things in black trash bags. Now, what we're finding nowadays is that our current foster youth have to also carry their things in black trash bags. Why does this happen? Number one, there's not money for a budget for them to be able to have their own luggage. And number two, it just is. It's just one of those things that happen. So part of my mission is always doing these luggage drives. So at minimum, these kids don't have to carry their things in black trash bags. And the message really that sent to me is that I was worth nothing more than the trash bags that I was carrying. Now, eventually, when I would grow to become a woman, guess what happened? I'm not carrying these black trash bags in the physical. I'm starting to carry them in the spiritual. We'll get there. So here I am, 15 years old. I thought I was a gangsta, but I was really a wanksta, right? So I've got the bandana on, and I was toughy, right? I was that child that most of us write off. You know, we see this kid who's turned up, who's disrespectful to authority, constantly, dropping or skipping class, being disrespectful, promiscuous. Someone asked me if I would hold a crack rock and oh gosh, I thought that was a great idea, because then that would build my community and my family, and I would be accepted. See, I'm not going to be up here today making myself seem that I'm this perfect woman, right? I'm going to be transparent because there's healing in transparency. So someone asked me to hold a crack rock, and I did. So now I'm selling drugs. So now I'm out here on the streets. So now I'm out here fighting, and I'm literally fighting with myself. I am a complete mess and didn't realize that I could actually turn all that mess into a message. No, I was stuck in my stuff. So I encourage you, when you see these children out here that are at-risk youth, you never know who they're going to become. Don't write them off, because they're in search for family and community, and they don't know how yet to use their voices. So here I am, quite an angry young girl, very frustrated with life. I felt like life let me down. What I didn't tell you is that when I was removed from my grandmother's care and placed into foster care, I was removed by a police vehicle. And the message that this sent to me is that I did something wrong. And most of our foster youth are still transported this way. What's the crime? Simply being alive. That's how it felt. So all that stuff, the spiritual black trash bags that I'm carrying with the unforgiveness and the anger and the resentment and all of the trauma, I'm now carrying that as a teenager. When you don't know who you are, anyone is going to be able to tell you who you are and who you're not. When you don't know your value, anyone will be able to tell you your value. So here I am at 15, and I had no idea who I was. And I'm trying to search for this identity in the things that I was doing and the people that I was around. So when a boy, because I told you, when a blessing's on the way, a blessing will come and a distraction, right? Two types of people, either the person that the blessing is attached directly to or that distraction. So my distraction just so happened to be a boy. And he said something to me that I had never heard before unless it was attached to trauma. And that was, "You're beautiful." And I didn't know it. So when he said it, it was everything. So I ended up giving this boy everything that I had, which was my body. Which is why we see a lot of the teenagers nowadays doing that, because they don't feel like they have anything else to give but themselves. And they haven't been taught boundaries as of yet. So they just let anybody into their lives. So we end up getting into this relationship, and all of a sudden, within 2 months, his hugs turned to direct hits in my face. Rather than saying that I was beautiful, he started calling me B words. Now, what's interesting, and I did a lot of reflecting, and I realized that, gosh, what did him and I have in common? Well, he also had lived in foster care. He also had lived through a lot of trauma. And what I learned is that healed people tend to gravitate toward healed people, and sick people attract sick people. So I was attracted to his sickness and his trauma. So now we're in this teen domestic violence relationship, and this month happens to be Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So let me just share this statistic with you. 1 in 3 adolescents in the United States will experience some form of domestic violence, whether it be physical, sexual, or emotional and verbal assault. 1 in 3. So I'm in this full-blown teen domestic violence relationship, and then I become pregnant. Now, I'm going to point out that I had on African clothing. That's going to matter in just a few moments. I had this great affinity toward Africa, all things African. That'll matter in a moment. So here I am, I've got my African outfit on, and I'm pregnant. And I'm pregnant with a promise for sure, but I'm also really scared because the idea of community, didn't have one. I just had my black trash bag full of all my mess, and I had this baby coming. Everybody say, the baby's coming, the baby's coming. Yeah, the baby's coming, so what am I gonna do? You don't have parents, you've never been shown how to be a mother, you've got all this stuff, what's gonna happen? Well, I had sense enough within myself to say, okay, I'm going to have to identify something greater than myself to get my life together. Because sometimes it has to be our why that pushes us to the next step and to the next step, because we're not enough. Listen, me this morning, I would have been fine laying in bed and watching Netflix all day, right? But my purpose said get up, because my purpose is greater than myself. So I had sense enough within myself to say, something's got to change, something's got to change. But I just didn't know how to get there. So after the baby is born, he's absolutely beautiful. His name is Trey. The court system, Child Protective Services, they got wind of these two teenagers that couldn't stop fighting. And so they issued this warning. They said, if you cannot protect your son and you continue to fight, we will remove your son and we will place him in foster care. So now it's like this whole cycle is about to continue, like this whole generational curse that's going on, right? Okay. So I didn't know how to keep him safe. I just knew that I had to. So we continue to fight. And one day I say, you know what? I don't exactly know how to keep myself safe and my son safe, and I don't know how to stop fighting, so I'm going to do everything that I feel that I can do, and I'm just going to leave for a few hours. I'll leave 3 to 4 hours. I'll let things cool off, and then I'll come back because I can't lose my baby. So we get into a fight. I go to the library. We never want to make judgments about what anyone has done because we don't know what we'll do when we get so low, right? So some of you may be saying, oh my gosh, how could you leave your son? You don't know what you would do if you were in that position. So I leave for 3 to 4 hours and I come back and Trey has broken capillaries all over his eyes. Trey had been shaken. That night, we were in the hospital. The doctors, they did all of these tests. They found that he would be fine, but guess what? Melrose failed to protect her son. By the next day, I was in court, and I was told that my son would be taken from me. But for me, God stepped in and allowed a judge to really have a heart for this broken youth and to really be able to see past my brokenness and see potential. And the judge said, I see that you love your son. I see that you have potential, but I also see that you have failed to protect him. But what we are going to do is show you grace. We're going to give you 24 hours to find a place to live. 24 hours. Okay? So I got my chance, but it just seemed like it was so far-fetched. There was a woman who worked for an organization called CASA. I love CASA. I'm a CASA groupie. CASAs are all over the United States, and what they are, they offer a service called Guardian Ad Litems. And Guardian Ad Litems are volunteers that are like angels that speak on behalf of foster youth in the court systems. And this Guardian Ad Litem went to bat for me. And she was able to find a teen parenting home called the Aridell Mitchell Home, which I now serve on the board of directors for in Seattle, Washington. And they had one vacancy. And all I had to do was interview in front of a whole bunch of old black women. Now, I don't know if you know, but older black women don't play. This is a hard audience. They will see right through your mess. Okay? So I had to go and convince these women, hey, I'm worthy of this opportunity. You only have one slot, but you have 9 girls that need a place to stay. What made me any different or greater? We all have a story. We all got a story in this room. I wasn't any better than them. I just was given that opportunity. And I let these women know, hey, I don't know how to do anything but make ghetto top ramen or ghetto stir fry, which is top ramen with a little bit of cheese. That's all I know how to make, right? You were supposed to laugh there. You know, I tried stand-up. No, really. I tried stand-up a few months ago and nobody laughed. So now when I give speeches, I try to tell these jokes. But listen, So I convinced them to give me an opportunity, because what I said to them was this, that I know that I also have potential, but I just need people surrounding me that can help bring that potential forth, because I actually can't do it alone, right? Because if you want to go fast, you can go alone, but if you want to go far, you got to go together. So I needed a team of people around me to help push me to the next level. So these women allowed me to have that one space in the Ardell Mitchell home, and let me tell you, it saved my life. Now, this teen parenting home wasn't like a shelter that maybe we think of in our minds, right, where you've got just cots and one bathroom and one big wash area. No, these places were full-blown apartments, fully furnished 2-bedroom apartments with dishes and everything that you need inside of them. And here I am now with my own place. When a blessing is on the horizon, 2 types of people will show up: the blessing and the perfect, the distraction. So we'll call Trey's father Mr. Play Too Much. So Mr. Play Too Much, he comes back in my life and he's telling me how things are going to be different and I should absolutely take him back and we can create a family together. And see, I couldn't listen anymore because Trey was my why. And my why said no, I've been down that path before. I've got to go this direction. See, I have a PhD in trauma and drama and pain. Let me get a PhD in mental wellness and well-being and living the life that was intended for me. So here I am in the Ardell Mitchell home, and they had very simple rules. 1, you had to keep your place clean. 2, no men were allowed in the building. 3, you had to go to work, and you also had to go to school. So that structure is really what saved me as well. So here I am, I'm going to school, and I'm working, and life was not easy, let me tell you, but it was worth it. See, a lot of us, we don't want to suffer. We don't want to go through inconvenience and pain. But that's where the strengthening comes from, is that suffering time, that painful time, right? So here I am, and I'm strengthening myself, and things are starting to change, and Trey is growing, and here we are in the teen parenting home together on Christmas. We're in the middle. That's before I discovered great weaves. God bless me. Yes, you laughed, finally. So I'm here, and life's not perfect, but it's certainly purposeful and amazing. And here we are together in 1999, my little tyke, and we're just on this journey together. And one day, I was at Walgreens shopping for diapers. And someone approached me and said something to me before that I had heard, but it was always attached to trauma. And she said, "Ma'am, you're very beautiful. Have you ever considered modeling?" Now I looked behind me because I know she wasn't talking about me, because see, I was looking at my exterior. And my exterior was that I didn't have the nicest clothes on. Yeah, my hair was unkept. And I was also thinking about my spiritual black trash bags of all the stuff that I was carrying. She couldn't see them, but they were certainly still with me, and they certainly still defined me in a sense, because I didn't know how to put them down yet. So she says, "No, I'm talking to you." She was like that person maybe that we've all had in our lives at one moment, that person who spoke life into us and offered us an opportunity, but we were all looking at maybe our age, where we've come from, what we have and what we don't have. And they're giving us this opportunity that's greater than ourselves. And that opportunity might have had to be something that we would have to grow into. But I take her card, and I let it sit on the refrigerator for 2 weeks. I almost tried to self-sabotage myself out of that opportunity because it was much bigger than I was. But then I had a thought. I said, I'm really afraid to make this phone call. But I'm even more afraid of never finding out what will happen if I don't. So I made that phone call, and I became signed at one of the top modeling agencies in Seattle, Washington. I didn't come here to talk to you today about modeling or fashion. What I came to talk about is the power of persevering and the power of understanding and knowing that we are destined for so much greater. Yeah. So I take her card, I get signed to this, pardon? This is awesome. Glad you guys are my community and my neighbors and family, right? Test 1, 2. All right. So I take her card and I get signed. And I'm modeling and making all of this money. And I made so much money that I was able to move out of the Yaredell Mitchell home. And I'm doing all this stuff. I'm going fast. I'm not going as far as I could. So I then had this idea. Now I'm 21. And I'm modeling. And I'm like, hey, I lived in 23 foster homes. I got signed at an agency. I've raised a son who's not lived in any trauma. I can do anything. So I decided that I was going to buy 2 one-way tickets to a place and call it home. And this place was one of the most expensive cities in the world, a place where I didn't know anybody at all, and a place that I also heard was very dangerous. That was New York City. It was a perfect idea. Now, everyone around me told me, Mel, you're not going to make it. You know, you're cute, but you're not that cute. You know, you're smart, but you're not that smart. You're from a small city. You know, you don't know anyone. How are you going to make it in New York City? And I used that as fuel for me to go. Now, if we look at the date, we'll notice it's July 31st, 2001. Yeah? Okay. So I had the cab driver take this picture. He said, I know photographer, I know photo shoot. I said, you photo shoot, take this picture. So he takes this picture, and I move into my place, and I'm working at a spa, and I'm modeling at the same time. And then the morning of 9/11, Trey, he had his little toy cars that he loved to take to school that used to drive me nuts, because those things were expensive. So I'm having to empty out his pockets. Delay. So then he's not putting his shoe on correctly, and I'm irritated. Delay. So then we miss the bus, then we miss the train, then he's walking slow and he's throwing a fit, and finally I get him to school late, and I'm super annoyed because I was detoured. And if I hadn't been detoured, I might have lost my life because, see, I only worked 13 blocks away from the World Trade Center. So when 9/11 happened, what it showed me in that moment is sometimes those detours that happen, that major inconvenience, it might just put us on the path that we're supposed to be on. So we need to be grateful for the detours. So here, Trey and I are together in front of my little apartment, living our life, and I'm modeling. Now, what's interesting is that my very first modeling job used my hands. Why is that relevant? Well, on my right hand, I have a scar, which if we happen to shake hands or hug, because I'm a hugger and I give them away for free, as long as you're not weird. If we happen to shake hands or we hug, you'll see that I have a 3rd-degree burn on my right hand. I got that in foster care. On my left hand, there's also a scar that I got in foster care. Why is this relevant? Well, the client didn't remove the scar from my hand. And what that showed me are our scars, the very thing that we think makes us ugly, is actually what gives us character and what makes us beautiful. And that those very things that are troubling us about ourselves, maybe it's a physical, maybe it's an inward thing, will one day be used as part of our message and our purpose. So I'm going to take you through a couple of pictures of my modeling work. You know, people, if you say you're a model, you got to show that you actually have done it, right? So here it is. So I'm modeling and doing all these amazing things and meeting all of these amazing people, right? But nothing could bring back the fact that I didn't have a mom or a dad, and that I was carrying this spiritual black trash bag of all this mess. No amount of makeup and hair and all this stuff, all these people that I was around could really repair all the inward stuff that was happening that I refused to face. So I'd go home and take off the wigs and take off the makeup and still really wish for a mom and dad and wish that all the stuff that I was carrying, it would go away. And it wasn't going away. Then I got a job working with Buick. Now, a sister friend of mine, she said, Mel, Buick is looking for presenters. They're looking for spokeswomen to travel around the country and to talk about vehicles, and it would be an amazing job for you. Well, I said, I only have a little bit of education, and what do we have to do, like stand in swimsuits and be like Vanna White? And she said, no, you have to actually know vehicles inside and out. And I said, well, I don't have any experience with that. And she said, well, that's the perfect reason why you should go out for it. So I traveled my way on to Detroit, and I interviewed for a position that I would one day work for 7 years. So what was I doing at these auto shows, right? Now, this is me with no experience, but I would stand in front of a vehicle and I would say, the windshield has extra thick acoustic laminated windshields in the front and the side glass to block wind noise from entering the cabin. Now, this is with no experience, y'all. No one showed me how to do that but YouTube. Thank you, YouTube. Showing me how to flip my voice back and forth from that to this, from that to this, over and over again. And so now I'm one of 7 presenters and narrators and spokeswomen for Buick, a national brand for GM in the country. All right. Now, what's really interesting, one of my favorite authors, Malcolm Gladwell, he says to master anything, you've got to log 10,000 hours in that thing, right? Well, I had no idea that those 7 years in speaking would prepare me for my purpose one day to travel internationally and speak. So I'm speaking, I'm making great money, and I'm doing all of these things. But mom and dad still weren't there, and I was carrying the spiritual black trash bag. I show you my eyes. Some of you may see a beautiful photo, but if you're looking with a discerning eye, you'll see pain. You'll see baggage. See, I got to a place that they say black folk don't get to. But mental illness has no color. I got to a place that was so low, y'all, that I could see value in my pictures, but I no longer saw value in myself. I was going to give up. I made the decision that I was going to make a very permanent decision for a completely temporary situation. I was tired of hurting. I was tired of going through the go-through and wishing for people that were coming that were never going to come, trying to replace people that were irreplaceable, trying to find a sense of family in people that didn't even care about me, not understanding what it meant to have neighbors, family, love, community. I wasn't thinking about Trey and my now daughter, Corinne. I was only thinking about pain. So I went to the Hoover Reservoir in Westerville. And instead of walking across a runway in a fashion show, I was walking across this runway to end my life. And I stood on the edge of this reservoir. And I stood on the edge of this reservoir and made the decision that I was going to jump. And this woman literally comes out of the blue. I like to call her an angel. And she says something to me that I certainly had heard before, but it was always attached to trauma, or maybe it was attached to the opportunity for me to model. And she told me that I was beautiful, and she told me that life was also beautiful. And this woman had sense to talk to me long enough that she was stalling, and police started coming from the left and the right and brought me from the edge of that bridge. And I remember that a police officer held me, sobbing me, and it felt like what a father might do when he's holding his daughter who's weeping. And that was the moment that my life began. And let me tell you, it was very difficult that day, because now I'm being carried like a little baby to an ambulance, and I have all these people looking at me and all these people talking about me. Sometimes we're going to be in a place in our lives where people are going to ridicule you. They are going to ostracize you. They are going to reject you. That is only strengthening you for what's to come. So all these people that were looking at me, they were not my family. Those that minded, they didn't matter. And those that matter didn't mind. And those that matter, they came and visited me in the psych ward that night. And they started speaking life over me. And that is when my life truly began. So, when I got out of the hospital, because being bound by your feet and your hands and in your mind is no fun, let me tell you. But I thought to myself, well, I have two choices here, right? I can either go left, which says that, hey, I'm going to end up a statistic. I'll be on various medications and be with various people that don't care about me, and maybe even eventually lose my children and be just another statistic. Or I can go right, and I can do the very real necessary work it's going to take to get to the other side. Remember, I talked to you about pain. Well, I recently started working out. It'll probably only last 2 weeks, but I started. And it hurts. Like I'm lifting weights and I'm going home and I'm like, my arms are killing me. And what my trainer said was, Mel, that's normal. In the beginning, it hurts when you're building muscle. Then you take a rest. Then you get back in the game. And then guess what? You become stronger. Now, in 2 weeks, hopefully, I'll see some type of result. Or I'm quitting. Yeah, just joking. Maybe I'm not joking. But anyway, I started to do the very real necessary work that it would take to get to the other side, and it was painful. I started to go to counseling. And anyone that tells you only crazy people go to counseling, they're crazy. You don't just go to the doctor when you're sick, do you? You go to maintain. Well, I had to go to counseling, and I'm still in counseling, which I love. It's one of my favorite beauty treatments, because I had to stop repeating what wasn't repaired. And in my spiritual black trash bag, I had all this stuff, my friends. I had anxiety, I had depression, I had post-traumatic stress disorder, I had triggers, I had all this stuff. And it was super overwhelming, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I am a mess. And my counselor helped me unpack this all and put it all down and pull it all out. And my counselor said, no, Mel. The stuff that's in the spiritual black trash bag doesn't define you. It's simply part of your narrative. It's not who you are. And my counselor also showed me that I could triumph over those things, but it would take some time. This is not a microwavable thing that happens quick. We want quick results. But this stuff happened over a lifetime. So we started to unpack, and let me tell you, it was difficult. And I took some time off from modeling because I needed to understand like this whole beauty thing and this whole value thing. And what I understood was that God never allowed me to model, to say, oh, look at me, I'm a model. It was, no, look, you don't have to look like what you've been through. And value had nothing to do with the stuff that I do. It's a knowing of who I am and whose I am. So I'm doing this healing work, and then it came to me that, hey, I've been drinking something called unforgiveness. And let me tell you, when you drink unforgiveness, it will kill you. It is literally like drinking rat poison, but you expect the person who has harmed you to die. And it was killing me, so what I had to do was stop it. So I went and met the woman that gave me life, my biological mother. And I didn't question her about what happened or what she did or why she wasn't there. What I told her was, I love you because I am you. And thank you for my life. And I forgive you for not being there, and my mother wept like a baby. And then I went and met the man who raped my mother, and that was something I did not want to do. See, healing is not convenient. Okay? It's very inconvenient, and it can be very painful, but it is absolutely necessary in all of our lives to get to the other side of where we're supposed to be. So I go and I meet this man and see that I look very similar to him. And I look him in the eyes and tell him I love him and God loves him and I forgive him for not being in my life. And he also wept like a baby. And guess what happened? I'm doing this spiritual work and I'm becoming stronger and mightier and more powerful and more beautiful. And it had nothing to do with modeling. I am so thankful that I made the choice to forgive my father. Because 1 year later, when we talk about choices, he picked up a bottle of Crown Royal, got himself drunk, and drove into the opposite end of traffic in Chicago, killed himself and 11 other people. Now, the thing about Facebook, is people like to upload everything. Oh, they don't care about what's going to trigger you or hurt you. They just want to show the news. Well, someone uploaded the video of the accident to YouTube, and I had to see my father's body crumpled in his truck. And that was very difficult, but it made me all the more thankful that I had done that very real necessary work for myself, that I could grieve him from a place of reconciliation and not regret. This image is cut off a bit, but then I had to go back to one of the most tumultuous foster homes that I'd ever lived in my life. When I tell you that I did not want to do that, that was the exact reason why I had to do it. Because when we go toward that which we are afraid of, we become stronger and mightier. Now, this was the home that I got the scarring in. And I kept having nightmares about it. And I knew that a huge part of my purpose and my freedom was going back and making things right. Now, I am not suggesting that if you've been through trauma that you go and face that thing today. Go to counseling, talk to 3 or 4 people that you trust, but you're going to have to do something. Something has to change. You've got to do things that you've never done before to get to where you want to be. You have to. So I went back to this foster home, and I knew my foster parents didn't live there, so I knew I was safe, but I went with my homegirl who's 6'2", because you always got to travel with someone bigger than you. She's a childhood friend. I said, Makila, I'm going to go back to this house because I need that for my healing. She said, okay. So we drove to the house. I said, hey, girl, I'm just going to touch the gravel, and then I'm going to get back in the car, and we'll drive off. She was like, okay. So I get out the car, and I touch the gravel. Then I look back at her and I said, Keila, I'm just going to walk to the middle of the driveway, but then I'm going to go back. She was like, oh, okay. Then I said, Keila, I'm going to walk to the door and I'm going to knock on the door. And she gets out the car now. She's like, okay. So she's walking with me. Yeah, everybody needs one of those friends, built like a linebacker, ready to just annihilate. So I knock on the door, not knowing what would happen. I just needed to do that for myself because I was afraid to do that. I knock on the door, and a little tiny Asian man answers, and he's a Buddhist monk. And I tell him, hi, my name is Mel Row, Melissa Rashawn Mel Row, and I'm here because I'm one of the kids that used to live in this foster home, and I don't know why I'm here, but I'm here. And he was like, I heard about you. I heard about all the kids that lived here, and I'm really sorry for the trauma that you'd gone through. He asked me if I wanted to go inside the house. I did not want to go inside the house. Trigger alert, but that was the exact reason why I had to go inside that house. So I went and I walked through, and what I immediately noticed was that the place that represented trauma, it was now beautiful. The room that I had been sexually violated in was now a room for meditation. This home houses 9 Buddhist monks. And though that's not the belief system I share, how incredibly symbolic was it that when I had finally done this healing forgiveness work, that the universe really set this up for me, that I would go back and find peace and beauty. And guess what happened? I became stronger and mightier. And the spiritual black trash bag, I started putting it down and not carrying it with me anymore. Then I came back to Ohio and I was like, hey, it's time to get to work. And I stepped out on faith and quit my job with Buick, quit my over $40,000 job, quit my comfort, because I wanted to do more. Even if it meant that I wouldn't be able to have as much paper as I had, because I believe when you chase purpose, that's where your fulfillment is, not your paper. That'll come. So statistics ran across my lap, so we'll go back to those statistics. There are currently over 420,000 foster youth in the United States. In Ohio, we have 15,500. By the year 2020, we are expecting to see that number raised to 20,000 because of the what? Opiate crisis. 50% of foster youth, not may, will experience poverty. 33% of them will attempt to take their life. 3% of them will graduate college. 21% of them will, not may, become teen parents. These statistics really ticked me off. Then I had an idea, and I took about 2 seconds on that idea, because when you just stay on the I, you get stuck. You have to move to the A, which is action. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something about that. I'm not going to be one of these people that say, hey, somebody should do something about that. That's sad. No, I'm going to be that somebody. But then something else fell across my lap, and that something was called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. Okay? And ACEs is a metric system that gives one a point for every type of trauma that they have experienced. You'll get a point if you've experienced physical abuse, emotional, sexual, domestic violence. Say you had a parent that was addicted to substance, mental illness that they suffered with, a parent that committed suicide or experienced early death, or a parent that was incarcerated. You would get a point for every ACE that you had, and the higher the ACE, the more likely that you were to develop heart disease, cancer, mental illness, and a whole host of other stuff. My score is 9 out of 10. But guess what? That's not a death sentence for me. That just made me crack up, because I was like, aw, that's cute. But not on my watch. I'm not going to be a statistic, because I'm going to arm myself with this information. I'm going to talk about it, and I'm not just going to talk because people love to talk. They don't love to make real change, but I'm going to train about it and figure out very real different outcomes that can happen for people with high ACE scores. And then something else came across my lap, and that was the fact that Oprah Winfrey was once in kinship care. And real quick, Lamar, don't hate me. Lamar, wave your hand. Okay, let me tell you about Lamar. He works at the Huckleberry House. He is a leader. He's also a foster alum. Star House, I love you so much. Star House, yep. I just wanted to make sure everyone was listening. He's a Star foster alum. Give him a round of applause. I love you, Lamar. And please support Star House, too. They're an amazing organization. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to take these statistics, and I am going to create very different outcomes that exist for foster youth. And like I said, Oprah Winfrey came across my lap, and I found that she was once in foster care. Nelson Mandela was in kinship care. Steve Jobs was also in foster care and then adopted. Our mayor's family took care of many foster youth. And what did we all have in common, folk? Not the trauma that we faced, was the fact that they were resilient, and was the fact that they all had 86,400 seconds in a day. and what they decided to do with them changed the course of their lives. Rather than saying somebody should do something about that, I decided to become that someone. And then again, I stayed away from the I and moved to the A in idea. And I started to pick up those mics. I started started working those 10,000 hours that I had logged working with Buick. And I began traveling around the different schools and telling these amazing youth about their value and about their worth and about the power of resiliency. And the fact that your experiences don't have to define you, you define you. You are not the sum total of your mistakes, but your decisions, the tiny little decisions that we make or don't make during the day, all add up to something. And what is it going to be? So I kept traveling to these different schools and would do work at the YWCA. This is all volunteerism, and I don't need an award for that. I don't believe in charity, because charity, for me, is like you're putting yourself on a pedestal. No, I believe that the human condition says that I have, so I give, and I'm here, and I'm going to reach far back and help others get to the same place. So I'm at the YWCA, and I'm meeting all these amazing women, and then I'm encouraging people to love and to serve and to do something greater than themselves. And my community and my neighborhood, which is something I didn't have growing up, it started to expand. And then I started to ask if there would be an opportunity for me to do work in prisons. And someone said, Mel, you don't have anything in common with prisoners. How is your story going to resonate? And I said, oh, that's also cute. But I do. Because number one, I'm a human being. Number two, I was in prison in my mind for many years. And I can go and tell these women that they can still write their books. They can still accomplish their goals. Doesn't matter what zip code that you're in. So I started doing more work in the prisons and helped people to empty also their black spiritual trash bags and put the bags down and let the chains go. And then I got a nice little job training foster parents on how to do it right. So what's really interesting is that the foster care system almost broke me, but then it led to my breakthrough. I used to want to run far away from foster care. Now I would never imagine running away from foster care. And I wasn't qualified for this job. Some of you may say, oh, but Mel, you had a lot of experience. Well, most people that are foster parent trainers, they've got, fancy letters behind their names. I don't, but I have purpose. And I had tenacity and the will to say that I'm going to get that. I'm going to do more. I'm not accepting no. And then I became a trainer for trainers. And now I travel all over the country speaking and teaching and doing this work. And ended up being on a TEDx stage, which was an amazing experience. And then I got adopted by Papa Jakes, who is now an amazing mentor in my life. And I saw my son graduate high school from Gahanna Lincoln High School. He is now in his third year at the University of Cincinnati. He's just made the Dean's List. Bearcats, aye! He made the Dean's List again. He's studying engineering, and he's now in Miami living his best life, Miami, Florida, on an internship, living his best life. They say, I don't even know who they is, that teen moms can't raise amazing members of society. That's a lie. When you take that 86,400 seconds and decide to do something different. And my sweet Corinne is the light of my little world. And she says she wants to be a speaker. And I say, all right, well, we'll train up a child. Yeah. So I'm doing all this amazing work. And I felt free. I've done this shadow healing work. And I've worked in my purpose and all of this stuff, right? I felt unstoppable. What did I say in the beginning about blessings, right? When a blessing is on the horizon, always a distraction's going to come up. I was on my way to Philadelphia to visit someone, And the night before, I felt like something bad was going to happen. I didn't listen to my spirit. Listen to your spirit. Something said, don't go. But I went. So I'm driving on 70, headed to Philadelphia, and all of a sudden this woman, she's driving a truck and the refrigerator falls off the back of this truck onto the highway. So I do what I felt was best. I slowed down and then I veered to the right, just like the car in front of me did, so we could move away from the refrigerator. Makes sense, right? But see, there was this woman behind me who was text messaging, and she didn't see me. I know none of us text message and drive in this room. And she didn't see me. And so her car T-boned me, my car spun out of control into the next lane, and an 18-wheeler truck slammed into my driver's side. You were looking at a woman. When I tell you, you don't have to look like what you've been through or behave like it. You don't. I suffered a broken clavicle, a broken hand, my left leg, and a brain injury. And that brain injury affected my memory and my speech and only added to trauma that I was going through. But guess what? I'm still standing today. Guess what? I didn't forget anything in this presentation. Now, you may have seen me trip over my words every now and then. I'm going to blame it on that and not blame it on my imperfectness. Yeah. But I kept speaking. And how did I do it? I was like, nothing will shut me up. Nothing will stop my voice. So I took my iPhone and I would do YouTube videos from my iPhone. And I would go on Instagram Live and I would go on Facebook Live because nothing was going to stop me from my purpose. And then, once I started walking again and healing and moving forward, I decided a huge thing that I needed to do. Oh, I'm sorry. I lost my ability to walk, work, and speak clearly, but then I remembered the power of resiliency. My God. Resiliency will save your life and keep you going. I identified my why and used that to get back up again. Like I said, folks, your why has to be greater than yourself because you is not enough. You will stay in the bed and, we want everyone to give us these 30-day guarantees that things are going to be great, but we won't even keep the guarantees for ourselves. We spend hours and hours at the Apple line or wherever trying to upgrade our phones, but we won't upgrade our lives. What's up with that? That stops today. So I had to do more, yeah? So I'm speaking, but I wanted to go to the next level. So I decided, remember I told you I had an affinity for all things Africa, right? So the long story is that I still had some unforgiveness about a situation that I'd gone through. And that unforgiveness said that I hated Africa. I hated the country Ghana. And God pressed it upon my heart that, daughter, you've gone back in your life many times and you've made things right in reference to unforgiveness. You went back to the foster home. You met your biological parents. You've had those difficult conversations. So you need to go to Ghana, which is a place that represents pain for you. And I'm like, I'm absolutely not going to go to Ghana because I don't know anybody there. And I've never been to a third world country by myself, and I'm not doing that. And then it kept being impressed in my spirit that I would have to do that. So I stepped out on faith. I booked my flight. I told people around me, they're like, Mel, are you sure that's a good idea? Trigger. That's going to represent a place of pain for you. You don't know anyone there. That was the exact reason why I had to go. So the first thing I had to do when I was there was forgive. So I'm like, well, God, how do I do that? So I get to the city of Accra and I speak the words, I forgive so-and-so. Now, while I was in Ghana, I'm like, well, hey, I actually want to do something with my time. I don't want to just shop. I don't want to just go to Accra and speak these magical words that were not magical at all. They were prophetic. I want to serve. So I'm speaking in women's prisons and I'm speaking at schools, and then I'm meeting amazing kids. And when I meet these children, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am literally in West Africa speaking to children. My neighborhood has been expanded because of my faith and my obedience. So I'm asking the people about this region, because let me just jump ahead and say that not all of Ghana looks like this. This is the central region. This is the more country area, right? So Accra and many parts of Ghana are very wealthy and beautiful, yeah? So I just want to talk about that, because there is this notion that Africans, just walk around in huts and have these swollen bellies, and that's not true at all. The things that we see on TV are not true. So I'm in this region, the central region, and I'm asking the people, who am I talking to? What's my demographic? And they said, well, these girls, they don't have homes. They've grown up without families. They're orphans. And many of them have sex in exchange for food. That broke my heart. I could relate. And I said, well, where's their school? And they said, that is their school. So I continue speaking and continue meeting amazing kids. And then, as I'm leaving one of the villages one day, a little girl takes off running toward my Uber, and she says, excuse me, miss. We roll down the window, and I said, yes, honey. And she said, will you be my godmother? And I didn't know what this meant, but I'm like, well, sure. And I said, because remember, people had given back to me in my life too, right? So I said, well, can we take her to lunch? They said, sure, that's no problem at all. So she gets in the car, and then this happened.
So I just left the village to speak at the school. God moved. I just caught the Holy Ghost in the car. But I have to introduce you guys to my new God baby. I'm not making this up. What's your name? What's her name, Anthony? Her name is Forgive. Forgive. I'm done. Her
name is Forgive. Actually, forgive, as in Forgive, forgive each other. That's forgive.
Bruh.
So her name is Forgiveness. So those magical words that God told me to speak were not magical at all. Wow. They would shape what was to come. See, sometimes when you do that inconvenient work, it gets you to the other side of purpose. Had I stayed away from Ghana, what I'm about to tell you would have never happened. So I had this idea. Remember when I talked to you about idea? You only want to stay on an idea for maybe 20 seconds, and you go from the I to the A quickly. So I had this idea. Well, these kids, they don't have a school. These kids, they're suffering. They're having sex in exchange for food. What can I do to be the change that I wish to see? I don't have a lot of money. I don't know a lot of people, but now I know some people because I've got community. And I can go fast, but I want to go far for these kids. What can I do? So when I was on my way home, on that airplane, I sketched a school on an airplane napkin. And this school was so big and so grand that I knew I would have to grow and to become the woman necessary to actually get it done. And when I came home on April 15th, we began building Melrose International School. And I did not do it by myself. I had a whole team of neighbors and communities to stand behind me to help get it done. So we began building, and it wasn't easy, but we kept going. And on September 7th of this year, we opened Melrose International School. We currently educate 500 girls, and we have 150 orphans that live here. December of this year, I will travel back to do some political work, but I will also begin building my high school. My final goal will be to build 23 places all over the world, because I lived in 23 foster homes. And that is my answer back to that trauma. And the wounds became wisdom, and the hate became love, and nothing will change my heart. not no relationship, not no situationship. My parents aren't coming back. That's fine. I've reached a place of peace. Nothing will stop me from my purpose. Don't allow anything or anyone to stop you from doing what has been called onto your life. I had no idea that God was going to take this little girl, and I did not plan this outfit, by the way. I really did not take this little girl and create really wisdom from wounds and purpose from pain. But it was a series of choices and decisions that said, yes, it will be. I will walk in my purpose. I will be the somebody that needs to be this change. Now it's your turn. I put these points down. I think that they're important. And remember, like I said in the beginning, that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. Now, me growing up without family, without a sense of community, neighbors, I didn't understand this concept, and I had to redefine it. And I had to redefine the family and the community and neighbors, and they became my fellow advocates, and they became foster alum, and they became the youth and the people that I speak to, and now it's the world. You are my family. But back to your turn. Number one, understand that the only real limits that exist are the limits we create for ourselves, so take them off. Number two, our issues and past experiences are simply part of our narratives. They do not have to define who we are. Number three, you only get to keep what you give away. Number four, we've been taught to take care of our own and to stay within the safety of our own backyards. But I say to you, we are one people. If you only work in your own backyard, you're actually going to stay stuck there and rob the world of your gifts. Number five, unsure of where to devote your time, treasure, and energy, I want you to think about a cause that breaks your heart the most and do everything you can to deliver everything you can to that cause. But number six, take care of yourself because you cannot pour from an empty cup. That's why when you fly, the flight attendant says, put your mask on first before putting it on someone else. You are most effective when you're at your best, which is why I say I'm still doing that inner work that's needed. I'm still in counseling. I'm still loving because I'm most effective when I'm mentally well and at my best. And finally, number seven, I want us all to turn off the WIFM station. What does that mean? It means what's in it for me. Turn it off and turn on WIFO, what's in it for others. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Ladies, continue. Thank you very much. A round of applause. Come on, give it to her, Columbus. Maybe we'll convince her to stick around a little bit if anybody has any questions.